The beast had not been defeated in recorded history. Not once that in 214 years of Kethvoran gladiatorial records. The creature they called Morvac, the Ender, had faced 63 challengers, 63.0 survivors that had been bred for this. Engineered across generations for size, aggression, and an intelligence just sharp enough to make it creative about violence. It weighed 4 tons. It stood 3 meters at the shoulder. Its hide had turned aside pulse weapons at close range. Its sensory array could detect a heartbeat through 2 meters of solid rock that had never, in 214 years, met anything it feared. That had certainly never met anything that looked directly at it, with those strange, small, forward-facing predator eyes, and whispered, in a voice that somehow carried perfectly across the entire arena, "Oh my goodness. You are absolutely magnificent." The crowd went silent, the beast went still, and Dr. Priya Sharma took one slow step forward, hand outstretched, and said, Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." What happened next changed everything. How she got there, Dr. Priya Sharma had not intended to end up in a gladiatorial arena on the Kethvoran pleasure station Velmus. Neither she had intended to attend a xenozoological conference. These things happen. The conference, the 14th Annual Panspecies Symposium on Comparative Megafauna Biology, a gathering of researchers from 31 species that met every 3 years to share findings on large animal life forms across the galaxy, had been scheduled on the orbital research platform 2 systems over. Priya had been presenting a paper on the neurological basis of interspecies trust behaviors in Earth megafauna. She had her slides prepared. She had her notes organized. She had packed exactly the right amount of field ration bars for the journey because she had learned, from 17 years of fieldwork on 4 continents and 2 ocean systems, that food availability at academic conferences was deeply unreliable. What she had not accounted for was a navigation error by the transport service she had booked, a mechanical failure that forced an unscheduled stop at Velmus 9 for repairs, and the particular sequence of events that began when she wandered into the station's lower entertainment district looking for something to eat and ended with a Kethvoran entertainment coordinator named Vriulin mistaking her for a purchased challenger. The mix-up was, in retrospect, understandable. Priya was small, 1.62 meters, lightly built, with the particular physical efficiency of someone who had spent years moving through terrain that punished unnecessary bulk. She was wearing her field jacket, which was tough, close-fitting, and had been repaired so many times in so many different ways that it looked, to an uninformed eye, like a kind of armor. She had, clipped to her belt, a multi-tool, a sample collection kit, a portable biometric scanner, and a tranquilizer injector she carried as standard field equipment when working with large animals that Vriulin, processing arrivals at the Challenger registration desk, and running 40 minutes behind schedule. She looked exactly like a very small, very lightly equipped independent fighter who had perhaps seen better days. He had processed her intake form before she fully understood what the form was for. "Wait," she said, reading it back. "This says I'm a gladiatorial challenger." "Yes," Vriulin said, already moving to the next form. "I'm not a gladiatorial challenger. I'm a xenozoologist. I study animals." "The beast is an animal," Vriulin said, with the distracted efficiency of someone managing too many things at once. "Very large one. Very aggressive. You'll be in the arena in approximately," he checked his scheduling system, 40 minutes. "Standard liability waiver is on page 3 of the form you've already signed." Priya stared at him. "I didn't read page 3. Most challengers don't." He finally looked up at her. His 4 eyes, arranged in a vertical line on either side of his face, assessed her with professional detachment. "Do you want the standard equipment package? Pulse blade, light shield, emergency beacon. I want to speak to someone about a scheduling error. The scheduling dispute desk opens in 6 hours. I'll be dead in 6 hours if what you're saying is true." Vriulin considered this. "Yes," he said, not unkindly. "That is a timing problem." The Arena Velmus 9's gladiatorial arena was not, by Galactic standards, the largest or most prestigious. It seated approximately 8,000, which was modest. Its production values were good. Excellent lighting, high-quality sensory broadcast systems that let the audience experience not just visual but olfactory and tactile elements of the arena environment. Its main draw, the thing that kept Velmus Nine's entertainment complex profitable when other stations struggled, was the Morvac. The beast had been on Velmus 9 for 11 years. In that time, it had become the station's primary attraction. Challengers came from across the sector, some professionals, some glory seekers, some desperate individuals, who had calculated that the prize money for surviving a round with the Morvac was worth the risk. None of them had survived long enough to collect. The record was 4 minutes and 17 seconds, held by a professional gladiator from the Vex breed who had fought in 46 previous engagements and was widely considered the best arena combatant of his generation. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The crowd that filled Velmus Nine's arena on the day Priya Sharma walked into it had come, expecting the standard entertainment. A challenger, they'd been told this one was human, which generated some curiosity, since humans were still relatively novel in this part of the galaxy, would enter the arena. The Morvac would be released. There would be a brief and probably exciting few minutes. Then the cleanup crew would do their work, the next event would begin, and everyone would go home satisfied. Priya walked into the arena carrying the standard equipment package, pulse blade, light shield, emergency beacon, and holding her portable biometric scanner, which she had refused to surrender on the grounds that it was personal medical equipment, which was technically true in that it had once been used to check her own vital signs during a particularly stressful fieldwork incident. She looked at the arena. 8,000 beings looked back at her. She looked at the gate at the far end, behind which something very large was moving, and the low, resonant sound of its breathing was coming through the floor as a vibration she could feel in her feet. She clipped the pulse blade to her belt, unopened, put the light shield on her left arm, raised her biometric scanner. The gate opened. What the beast was, the Morvac entered the arena the way it always did. All at once, no hesitation, no gradual emergence. It came through the gate at full size and full presence, and the crowd noise shifted instantly from anticipation to the particular sound of 8,000 beings collectively processing something that triggered every ancient fear response in their nervous systems. It was, objectively, one of the most physically impressive organisms in the cataloged galaxy. 0.4 tons of engineered aggression, 6 limbs, 4 for locomotion, 2 upper limbs that ended in manipulator appendages capable of exerting crushing force equivalent to a hydraulic press. Scales the color of deep space, so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A head that was mostly jaw, wide, powerful, capable of generating bite force that structural engineers had used as a benchmark for certain load-bearing calculations. Eyes that sat forward-facing on the skull, gold-irised, with a vertical pupil that expanded in the arena lights to something that made most species threat assessment systems file an urgent report. It scanned the arena with the calm efficiency of an organism that had no natural predators and had never needed to develop the neurological equivalent of caution. It found the challenger small, bipedal, one of the soft-skinned species, holding something in its upper limb that was emitting a faint signal. The beast's sensory array classified as non-threatening, some kind of scanning device. The beast began to move, and then it stopped, because the challenger was doing something none of the previous 63 had done. It was not raising its weapon. It was not activating its shield. It was not running, or freezing, or making any of the standard prayer responses that the beast had learned to anticipate over 214 years of arena experience. It was standing completely still, scanner raised, and it was. The beast's sensory array confirmed this, though it had no category for this data, making sounds, soft sounds. Low, non-aggressive. The beast paused. Its sensory array was very sophisticated. It could read hormonal profiles in the air at 40 meters distance. Fear had a smell. Every species' fear had a smell, and the beast knew all of them, because they were the smell of the moments before everything ended. It read the air and stopped moving entirely, because the small biped was not afraid, not suppressing fear, not drugged into artificial calm, not in the dissociated state of beings who had passed through fear and come out the other side into a strange stillness, genuinely, physiologically, measurably, not afraid. The beast had never encountered this before. Its processing systems, highly developed for predation and not much else, found themselves in genuinely novel territory. What do you do with prey that doesn't know it's prey? What Priya was doing, she was doing what she always did when she encountered a large animal for the first time. She was reading it. Her biometric scanner was pulling atmospheric composition data, hormonal compounds, metabolic byproducts, the chemical signature of the beast's physiological state. Her own eyes were doing what 17 years of megafauna fieldwork had trained them to do, reading posture, movement pattern, the micro-signals of body language that every large animal broadcast continuously whether they knew it or not. The Morvac was aggressive by engineering and by history. That was in everything about it. The forward-set eyes, the dominant posture, the way it moved into space rather than through it. But it had stopped, and the way it had stopped, the specific quality of that stillness, was something Priya had seen before. Not in this species, obviously, but in the underlying grammar of animal behavior, which was, in her experience, considerably more consistent across species than most people expected. It was confused, genuinely, functionally confused. Its model of the situation, challenger enters, beast approaches, standard sequence follows, had encountered data that didn't fit the model, and it was doing what intelligent animals did when their model broke. It was waiting for more information. Priya exhaled slowly, kept her voice low and even, not high-pitched. High pitches read as distress signals in most mammalian-adjacent species, and the Morvac's biosignature suggested mammalian-adjacent thermal regulation. Low, calm, the tone she used when approaching a new animal in the field. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, I see you." The beast's head tilted approximately 4 degrees to the left. In Priya's experience, a head tilt from a large predator was one of the best signs you could get. Head tilts meant cognitive engagement. They meant the animal was processing rather than reacting. Processing was survivable. Pure reaction was not. "You're remarkable," she said, still in that low, even tone, still not moving. "Genuinely. Do you know how rare a biosignature like yours is? Your thermal regulation alone. I've never seen anything that runs this hot and this efficiently at your mass. Your metabolism must be extraordinary." The Morvac had absolutely no idea what she was saying, but it could read the tone. Every animal could read tone, and the tone said, not a threat, not prey, something else, something the beast had no category for. 8 minutes in, the crowd had gone completely silent. This had never happened before. In 214 years of arena events at Velmus 9, the crowd had never gone silent. There was always noise, the escalating tension noise as the beast approached, the explosive noise of the engagement, the specific noise of the outcome. The crowd noise was part of the experience. It was what the broadcasters sold. Right now, 8,000 beings were sitting in absolute silence, staring at a scene that none of their threat assessment systems, entertainment expectations, or prior experiences had equipped them to process. The Morvac, the Ender, undefeated in 63 engagements, the apex predator that had ended the careers of professional gladiators, was sitting, not crouching for a strike, not resting between charges, sitting, in the way that large animals sit when they are calm and not planning anything immediately violent. Weight back on the rear limbs, upper body upright, head at a neutral angle, and the small human was standing approximately 6 meters away from it, scanner in hand, talking, continuously, not loudly, not in the high, stressed tones of someone trying to keep an animal at bay, in the quiet, engaged voice of someone who had found something genuinely fascinating and was working through their observations out loud. "Your scales, can you see these? From this angle, in this light, there's a structural iridescence that isn't obvious at distance. That's not just pigmentation, that's microstructure. Nanostructure, possibly. Which would mean, hold on, let me check the spectral reading." She adjusted her scanner settings. The Morvac watched her adjust the scanner. Its head tilted again. In the broadcast booth, the senior commentator, a Velhari named Pethoris who had been covering arena events for 20 years and had commentated on all 63 of the Morvac's previous engagements, was staring at his screens with his mouth open. His junior colleague touched his arm. "Peth, you need to say something. We're broadcasting to 400,000 viewers, and we've been silent for." "I know how long we've been silent," Pethoris said. "What do we?" "I don't know," Pethoris said. "I genuinely don't know. I've never," he stopped, looked at the screens, looked at the small human who was now slowly, very slowly, taking one step forward. "Is she moving toward it?" "Yes." "Is it?" It's not moving. Silence. Say something, Peth. What do I say? What is there to say? She's walking toward the Morvac, and it's letting her, and I have absolutely no framework for. On the arena floor, Priya had closed the distance to 4 meters. 3.5. 3. The Morvac's nostrils, located in a sensory cluster above its jaw line, were working rapidly. Reading her. Processing the chemical signature of a being that was close enough now that the data was very detailed. Not afraid. Not aggressive. Curious. The beast knew curious. It had a category for curious. It felt curious itself, sometimes, about new things in its environment. It was not a common experience in the arena, where everything was simplified into the binary of threat and target. This was different. This was something looking at it. Really looking, with the focused attention of an organism that found it genuinely interesting, and wanting to understand it. The beast had been in this arena for 11 years. In 11 years, no one had ever found it interesting. They had found it terrifying. They had found it impressive. They had found it, in the end, fatal. But interesting? Priya stopped at 2 meters. She held up her free hand, palm forward, fingers spread. The universal signal that translated across most species not as surrender, but as something older, something that predated language. Look. Empty. No threat. I'm going to be very still now, she said softly. You can smell me if you want. I don't mind. The Morvac stared at her for a very long moment. Then it leaned forward and smelled her. What it smelled? The chemical biography of a human being, read at close range by a sophisticated sensory system, was a complex document. It said, mammalian, warm-blooded, omnivore, the metabolic signature of a species that ate both plant and animal matter, which among predator species tended to register as a peer rather than exclusively as prey. It said, high cortisol baseline, but not fear cortisol. Engagement cortisol, the hormonal signature of focused attention, of an organism operating at the edge of its capability and finding it stimulating rather than threatening. It said, old injuries, healed, but present in the scar tissue and the microadaptations of a skeleton that had experienced significant physical stress and recovered from it. Falls, probably some impacts. The specific signature around her respiratory system that suggested she had at some point been at very low oxygen pressure for an extended period. It said, no aggression. And underneath all of it, at the base level, where chemistry became something almost philosophical, it said something the beast had no word for but registered as a sensation. This thing has been in dangerous places. Many dangerous places. And it is still here. The Morvac pulled its head back. It looked at the small human. The small human looked back. Hello, she said. The beast made a sound. Not a roar. Not the attack vocalization that the crowd had heard 63 times before and that the broadcast system had made famous across 4 systems. A different sound. Low. Almost questioning. In the broadcast booth, Peth forgot to breathe. 14 minutes in, Vriolin had left his scheduling desk and was now standing at the arena operations window with every other member of the Velmus 9 entertainment staff, staring at the arena floor. His supervisor, operations director Kothfen, was standing next to him. Neither of them was speaking. On the floor below, the human had sat down. Cross-legged, on the arena floor, 2 meters from the Morvac, with her scanner in her lap and her pulse blade still clipped and used to her belt. And the Morvac had, there was no other word for it, settled. Lowered its massive body to the arena floor with a weight that they could feel through the building's structure, tucked its front limbs under its chest, and was lying there. Like an enormous, terrifying, 4-ton dog. Watching the human. Who was watching it back? What, said Operations Director Kothfen, is happening? I'm not sure, Vriolin said. Is this a technique? Some kind of human combat technique? Are they going to? I don't think so. Then what? I think, Vriolin said slowly. She's making friends with it. A very long silence. That's not possible. I know. The Morvac doesn't. It's not capable of. It's an engineered killing organism. It doesn't have the... Director, Vriolin said. Look at the floor. Kothfen looked at the floor. The Morvac had put its head down. On the arena floor. Chin down, eyes still open, watching the human with an expression that Kothfen had absolutely no professional framework for. Because in 11 years of managing this creature, she had never seen it make that expression. If she had to name it, she would have said, comfortable. What Priya knew about animals. She had been 6 years old the first time she sat with a large animal. A rescued elephant at a sanctuary outside Chennai. 40 years old, arthritic, with a complicated history of captivity and a well-documented distrust of humans. The sanctuary staff had been surprised when she had walked to the fence, sat down cross-legged in the dirt, and simply waited. Her mother had asked what she was doing. Letting her know I'm not scared, she had said. If you're scared, they know. And if you're scared of them, they think there's a reason to be scared. So you have to actually not be scared. Her mother had asked how she managed that, looking at an elephant 3 times the height of a grown adult. Priya had thought about it seriously, the way 6-year-olds think about things they know instinctively but haven't put into words before. She's just an animal, she had said finally. She's big and she's had bad experiences, and she doesn't know if I'm safe yet. That's not scary. That's just how it is when you meet someone new. The elephant had approached the fence 40 minutes later. She had let it smell her hand. Then she had scratched behind its ear, and the elephant had made a sound that the sanctuary workers said they had never heard it make before. Priya had gone home that evening and told her parents she was going to study animals for the rest of her life. She had not deviated from this plan once in 31 years. She had worked with elephants, with great white sharks, with mountain gorillas, with Nile crocodiles, with species from 7 planets and 3 different evolutionary lineages. She had been charged at, mock charged at, bluff charged at, and once actually charged at by a bull elephant who had ultimately stopped 2 meters from her because she had done the counterintuitive thing, stood her ground, and looked directly at him. And it had broken his charge pattern. She had, across 17 years of fieldwork, never been seriously injured by an animal. Not because she was lucky, because she understood something that most people, most species, most beings who encountered large, dangerous animals failed to understand. Aggression, in the vast majority of cases, was a response. It was a response to fear, to threat, to confusion, to pain. Animals were not abstractly violent. They were specifically violent, in specific circumstances, for specific reasons. You remove the circumstances, you change the reasons, you got a different response. The Morvac was extraordinary, engineered for aggression, yes. But it was also intelligent. She had seen that in the first seconds, in the way it had stopped and processed when her behavior didn't match its model. Intelligent animals were workable. You could communicate with intelligent animals. Not in language, in the deeper grammar of behavior that every organism with a nervous system spoke. She had been speaking that grammar for 31 years. She spoke it now, sitting on the arena floor, watching the Morvaca's breathing slow and its posture settle, and knowing, the way she always knew, with the particular certainty of someone whose read had never, in 31 years, been significantly wrong, that they had crossed something. Some threshold. Some point where the beast had made a classification and filed her, for the first time in its 214-year-old history, in a category that was not challenger and not threat and not prey. Something new. Something it didn't have a word for, but that its ancient, pre-engineering instincts recognized at a level below cognition. Safe. 22 minutes in. The Morvac made its move at minute 22. 8,000 beings gasped as one when it stood up, and then stood in confused, absolute silence as it crossed the 2 meters between them in a single slow movement and placed its massive head in Priya's lap. For tons. Head. In her lap. Priya made a quiet sound, not of fear, not of shock, but of the specific delight of someone who had just received confirmation of a hypothesis they had been working toward, and very carefully, very slowly, placed her hand on the beast's head, between what she estimated were its equivalent of temples, and scratched. The sound the Morvac made was something the Velmus 9 broadcast system had never captured before, something that the audio engineers would spend weeks afterward trying to properly classify and ultimately file under a category they created specifically for this occasion. Approximate equivalent, contented. What happened next? The formal incident report filed by Operations Director Kothfen was, by the standards of Velmus 9's administrative documentation, unusually long. It covered the scheduling error that had placed Dr. Priya Sharma in the arena, the 22-minute period of non-engagement, the subsequent 31 minutes during which the Morvac had remained in contact with Dr. Sharma while she conducted what the report described as apparent biological assessment activities using personal scanning equipment. It covered the moment at minute 47 when Dr. Sharma had apparently run out of things to scan and had begun, instead, telling the Morvac about her fieldwork on Earth. It covered the extraordinary fact that the Morvac had, for the duration of this narration, remained completely still and apparently attentive. It covered the moment at minute 53 when Dr. Sharma had looked up at the broadcast booth and said, in a perfectly conversational tone, "I think there's something wrong with this animal's third left scale row. There's an inflammation pattern that suggests a chronic irritation, possibly from the arena substrate. Has anyone looked at that?" And it covered, in language that Ka-Fin rewrote 4 times, because no version of it read as anything other than extraordinary, the conclusion of the arena session, in which Dr. Priya Sharma had stood up, told the Morvac it had been a pleasure to meet it, and begun walking toward the exit. At which point the Morvac had followed her to the gate, and then, when the gate closed and Priya disappeared from its view, had sat down directly in front of the gate and made a sound that the audio engineers had previously never recorded from it. They classified it, after significant deliberation, as approximate equivalent, calling the meeting. Ka-Fin met Dr. Sharma in the operations corridor outside the arena. She had prepared a speech. It covered the scheduling error, the appropriate apologies, the liability waiver, the standard resolution protocols. She got approximately 4 words into it before Dr. Sharma interrupted. "Your beast has a chronic inflammatory condition in its third left scale row," she said. "It's been there long enough to affect its movement pattern. I noticed a very slight favoring of its left rear limb during positional changes. Whatever the arena substrate is made of, there's a compound in it that's causing a low-grade chemical irritation. It's not debilitating yet, but it will be. You need a veterinary xenobiologist to look at it." Ka-Fin stared at her. "I'm a xenobiologist," Dr. Sharma added helpfully. "I'm not a veterinary specialist, but I can make a referral if you need one. I'll also need my conference registration refunded because I missed the opening session while I was in your arena, and I'm hoping you can arrange transport to the research platform because my original transport is presumably still being repaired." And she paused, as if a thought had just occurred to her. "What's the Morvac's name?" "It's what?" "Its name. Does it have one?" "The designation Morvac is a title, not a name. Does anyone call it something specific?" "In my experience, large intelligent animals respond better to consistent individual identifiers, and I'd like to know what to use when I come back." Ka-Fin's 4 eyes arranged themselves in the Kethvoran expression that translated, across species, as "I need a moment." "When you come back," she repeated. "To check on the inflammation," Dr. Sharma said patiently. "And I'd like to do a full behavioral assessment, if you'll allow it." The Morvac is one of the most cognitively sophisticated large organisms I've ever encountered. The processing speed, the behavioral flexibility, the capacity for rapid social recalibration. This animal is extraordinary, and I suspect it's deeply, chronically understimulated, which is probably contributing to the aggression levels. Because in my experience, animals at this cognitive level who don't have sufficient environmental complexity to engage with. "Dr. Sharma," Ka-Fin said. "Yes. You were just in the arena with the Morvac." "Yes. The Morvac that has never allowed a challenger to survive beyond 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I know. That record is going to need updating." She frowned slightly. "Although technically I wasn't a challenger. I was a scheduling error. Does that count for the records?" Ka-Fin sat down on a corridor bench. She was a professional. She had managed Velmus 9's entertainment complex for 9 years. She had handled crises, disputes, mechanical failures, diplomatic incidents, and one memorable occasion involving a Sorvai merchant and an illegal thermal pet that had gotten into the ventilation system. She had never sat down in a corridor because a situation had simply exceeded her capacity to remain standing. She sat now. "You're not afraid of it," she said. Dr. Sharma considered the question with what appeared to be genuine thoughtfulness. "It's a 4-ton apex predator with 2 centuries of arena conditioning," she said. "Of course I'm afraid of it. Fear is appropriate. Fear keeps you paying attention. You didn't show. Showing fear to a large predator in an ambiguous social situation is counterproductive," Dr. Sharma said. "I was afraid. I just didn't perform it. There's a difference." She paused. "Can I ask, what does it eat?" The biosignature suggested a protein-heavy diet, but the specific metabolic markers were unusual, and I want a cross-reference. In the arena behind the gate, the Morvac made its calling sound again. Both of them turned toward it. "I think," Dr. Sharma said, with the quiet satisfaction of someone whose hypothesis has been thoroughly confirmed, "it wants to know where I went." 6 months later, the paper published in the Journal of Panspecies Xenobiology 6 months after the incident at Velmus 9 was titled, "Cognitive Complexity and Social Behavior in Engineered Megafauna, a Case Study of Morvac Class Organisms." Its author was Dr. Priya Sharma, affiliated with the Earth Xenobiological Institute and, as of 3 months ago, also listed as consulting xenobiologist to the Velmus 9 entertainment complex under a contract that had been negotiated with considerable speed after the arena footage had circulated to approximately 40 million viewers across 11 systems. The paper's abstract noted that the subject organism, referred to throughout as Subject M, demonstrated cognitive flexibility, social learning capacity, and emotional range significantly beyond what had previously been documented for its class. It noted that Subject M had, over the course of the study period, demonstrated clear individual recognition of the researcher, goal-directed communication behaviors, and what the paper carefully described as apparent preference for the researcher's presence over other environmental stimuli. What the paper did not include, because it was a scientific paper and not a personal account, was the moment, 3 weeks into the study, when Priya had arrived at the arena for her morning session and the Morvac had made a sound she had not heard before. Not the calling sound. Something different. Warmer. She had described it to her research assistant as the sound a very large animal makes when it sees someone it was hoping to see. Her research assistant had said, "Dr. Sharma, I think it's decided you're its human." Priya had looked at the 4-ton, 2-century-old apex predator that was currently trying to fit its enormous head through a gap in the barrier so she could scratch its temporal region. "Yeah," she had said. "I think you're right." She had scratched its head. It had made the warm sound again. And somewhere on Velmus 9, Vreeland had updated the Morvac's official file with a note that would remain in the record for the rest of the creature's very long life. Assigned human, Dr. P. Sharma, Earth. Do not schedule for arena events without prior consultation. Note, subject has demonstrated selective social bonding. Attempts to separate subject from assigned human result in significant behavioral disruption. Additional note, the human does not seem to mind. They built it to be the end of things. The last thing challengers ever faced. The apex of engineered aggression. The creature that the galaxy's best fighters had looked at and found, in 4 minutes and 17 seconds or less, to be their absolute limit. And then a small woman from Earth walked in, with a scanner, and a field jacket that had been repaired too many times. And 17 years of sitting with dangerous animals in dangerous places and learning, really learning, at the level of bone and nerve, that aggression is a response. And that the right response to a response is not more force. It's understanding. She didn't fight the beast. She met it. And the most feared organism in 4 systems decided that what it had been missing in 214 years of arena history was a person who thought it was magnificent. Turns out that's all it ever wanted. Turns out that might be all any of us want. That's HFY. Not always explosions. Not always war. Sometimes it's a woman sitting cross-legged on an arena floor, telling a 4-ton predator that its scale iridescence is extraordinary, and meaning every word. Subscribe to Humans Hit Different for more HFY stories, the ones that remind you what humanity actually is. Not just fighters, not just survivors. People who find the magnificent in everything, and aren't afraid to reach out and say hello. Bell subscribe. New stories dropping regularly. The universe keeps underestimating us. We keep proving it wrong.